In the heart of a bustling city filled with towering skyscrapers and busy streets, Special Agent Maya Carter was making waves. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was one of the few black women working as an FBI agent in her division. Her colleagues often whispered about her sharp mind and ability to stay calm under pressure. But while some admired her skills, others couldn't look past her skin color or gender. Despite this, Maya carried herself with quiet confidence, determined to prove that she belonged. Maya had spent years climbing the ranks, earning every promotion through hard work and dedication. Yet no matter how many cases she solved or how many criminals she brought to justice, there were always people who doubted her. They would question if she truly earned her place, or if it was handed to her because of affirmative action, a phrase she heard far too often. Still, Maya never let those comments bring her down. She focused on what mattered most, protecting the community and doing her job well. One morning, Maya received a call from her supervisor. A series of hate crimes had shaken the city, leaving fear in its wake. Graffiti-covered walls with hateful messages, businesses owned by minorities were vandalized, and anonymous threats were sent to the local leaders. It was clear these weren't random acts. They were part of something bigger, more sinister. The case needed someone smart, fearless, and capable of navigating sensitive situations without causing further harm. That's when Maya's name came up. As Maya drove to the latest crime scene, her mind raced with possibilities. Who could be behind these attacks? What message were they trying to send? And why now? Pulling into a narrow alleyway lined with yellow police tape, she stepped out of her car, ready to get to work. But before she could even open her notebook, she noticed him. Officer Gray Hensley. Hensley was a tall man with broad shoulders, and a scowl etched onto his face. He'd been on the force for decades, earning a reputation for being tough, but also difficult to work with. Some called him old school, others avoided him altogether. When he saw Maya approaching, his lips curled into a sneer. Well, he said loudly enough for nearby officers to hear, "Looks like we got ourselves a new boss." His tone dripped with sarcasm, and Maya immediately sensed trouble brewing. Ignoring him, she walked toward the taped-off area where evidence markers dotted the ground. But Hensley wasn't done. Following closely behind her, he added, "You sure they didn't send you here by mistake? This isn't exactly charity work, you know." His words hung heavy in the air, drawing curious glances from bystanders and fellow officers alike. For a moment, Maya felt a flicker of anger rise inside her chest. She wanted to confront him, to tell him exactly what she thought of his attitude. But instead, she took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was there, to solve the case, not to engage in petty arguments. Still, she knew this wouldn't be the last she'd hear from Officer Hensley. Something told her their encounter was only beginning, and it might test her patience like never before. The investigation reached its climax on a chilly, overcast morning. After weeks of relentless pursuit, Maya and her team had traced the ringleader of the hate group to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The man, identified as Victor Kane, was not only responsible for orchestrating the attacks, but also had ties to larger extremist networks. Taking him down wouldn't just solve this case, it could dismantle an entire operation threatening the safety of countless communities. Maya knew the stakes were high. Intelligence reports suggested that Kane and his followers were armed and dangerous. Going in blind wasn't an option. She spent hours meticulously planning the raid, reviewing blueprints of the warehouse, coordinating with SWAT teams, and ensuring every possible scenario was accounted for. Her calm yet commanding presence reassured everyone involved, even those who typically disliked working under FBI leadership. As dawn broke, the team moved into position. Maya insisted on being part of the operation, despite protests from some officers who thought it was too risky. "I'm leading this investigation," she said firmly. "If something goes wrong, I need to be there to make decisions in real time." Her determination left no room for argument. The raid began with precision. Flashbangs echoed through the empty streets as officers stormed the building, their movements swift and coordinated. Inside, chaos erupted. Shouts filled the air as suspects scrambled to escape or retaliate. Maya stayed close to the action, her heart pounding but her mind focused. She spotted movement near a back exit and signaled for backup, her instincts sharp and unerring. It was then that she heard a scream. One of Kane's accomplices had taken a hostage, a young woman who worked at a nearby business targeted by the group. The accomplice held her at gunpoint, his hand trembling as he shouted demands. Panic rippled through the team, but Maya stepped forward without hesitation. "Let her go," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "You're outnumbered. There's no way out." For a moment, it seemed like the situation might escalate further. But Maya didn't back down. She kept talking, her tone firm yet empathetic. "This isn't you," she said, locking eyes with the man. "You don't want to hurt anyone. Let us help you end this peacefully." Her words struck a nerve. Slowly, reluctantly, the man lowered his weapon, allowing officers to secure him and free the hostage. Meanwhile, Kane tried to flee through a hidden tunnel beneath the warehouse. Maya anticipated his move and led a small team to intercept him. The chase ended in a dramatic standoff, with Kane cornered and out of options. As handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he glared at Maya, spewing hateful rhetoric one last time. But she refused to let his words affect her. Instead, she leaned in close and said quietly, "Your hate stops here." News of the successful raid spread quickly, dominating headlines across the city. Reporters praised Maya's bravery and leadership, highlighting how she had risked her life to save a hostage and bring justice to victims. Social media buzzed with support for her and her team, with many calling her a hero. Even critics within the department grudgingly admitted that her handling of the case had been nothing short of exemplary. In the aftermath, Maya stood outside FBI headquarters, watching as reporters interviewed members of the team. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not because of the attention, but because they had succeeded in protecting the community. Still, she knew the fight against hatred and prejudice was far from over. For now, though, she allowed herself a rare smile. Justice had been served, and she had proven once again that resilience, courage, and unity could overcome even the darkest forces. The days following the confrontation at the crime scene brought a noticeable shift in the dynamics of the investigation. Word of Maya's handling of Officer Hensley spread like wildfire through the department. While some officers still harbored skepticism about her, many others began to see her in a new light. Her calm demeanor, sharp intellect, and ability to command respect without raising her voice left an impression that was hard to ignore. Slowly but surely, she started gaining allies, people who admired not just her skills as an investigator, but also her integrity as a leader. One of those allies was Detective Marcus Lane. Since their collaboration on reviewing security footage, Marcus had become one of Maya's most reliable supporters. He admired how she balanced authority with approachability, always taking the time to explain her reasoning and encourage input from others. "You've got a way of making people feel like they matter," he told her during a late-night brainstorming session. "Even when things get tough, you never lose sight of the bigger picture." Maya appreciated his kind words but remained humble. "It's not about me," she replied with a small smile. "It's about finding justice for the victims and stopping whoever is behind these attacks. Every clue we uncover brings us closer to that goal." Her focus never wavered, and it inspired those around her to push harder too. As the investigation progressed, Maya and Marcus formed a strong partnership. Together, they uncovered crucial leads that began piecing together the puzzle. One breakthrough came when they discovered a pattern in the timing and locations of the hate crimes. Each incident seemed to target areas where minority-owned businesses were thriving, a clear attempt to intimidate and destabilize the community. Armed with this insight, Maya directed the team to dig deeper into local groups known for extremist ideologies. Their efforts paid off when a tip came in from an anonymous source. Someone had overheard suspicious conversations at a bar frequented by members of a white supremacist group. The information was vague, but Maya recognized its potential significance. She immediately organized a stakeout, working closely with Marcus and a few trusted officers to monitor the location discreetly. During the operation, tensions ran high. The team knew they were dealing with dangerous individuals, and any misstep could jeopardize the entire investigation. But Maya's steady leadership kept everyone focused. She reminded them constantly to prioritize safety while staying alert for anything unusual. Her confidence proved infectious. Even officers who had initially doubted her now followed her instructions without hesitation. Late one evening, the surveillance finally bore fruit. A van matching the description provided by the tipster pulled up outside the bar. Two men exited, their faces partially obscured by hoods, and loaded what appeared to be cans of spray paint into the vehicle. Maya signaled for the team to move in cautiously. Within minutes, they had detained the suspects and secured the evidence needed to connect them to the string of hate crimes. Back at headquarters, the mood was electric. Officers celebrated the arrest as a major victory, crediting Maya's strategic thinking and determination. Even some of her former critics admitted privately that she had been instrumental in cracking the case. For Marcus, the experience solidified his admiration for Maya. "You don't just solve cases," he said earnestly. "You inspire people to be better, to do better." Despite the progress, Maya remained grounded. She knew there was still work to be done, more suspects to identify, more victims to support, and more communities to reassure. But for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The team's success wasn't hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had contributed. And as she looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues, she felt a renewed sense of hope. Change might not happen overnight, but moments like this proved that unity and perseverance could overcome even the toughest challenges. Officer Greg Hensley wasn't the type to let things go quietly. From the moment he spotted Maya, it was clear he had no intention of respecting her authority, or even pretending to. As she crouched near a piece of evidence, carefully examining it with gloved hands, Hensley loomed over her shoulder. "You sure you know what you're doing?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "This isn't some desk job where you can just push papers around." Maya didn't respond right away. She dealt with men like Hensley before, people who thought they could intimidate her into backing down. Instead of rising to the bait, she continued jotting notes in her notepad, her movements calm and deliberate. But Hensley wasn't about to give up. He leaned against a nearby car, crossing his arms as if he owned the place. "I mean, don't get me wrong," he said, raising his voice slightly so others could hear. "It's great that they're trying to bring diversity to the force. But this is serious business. Lives are at stake here." A few officers standing nearby exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others pretended not to notice. One rookie looked torn between stepping in and staying out of it altogether. The tension in the air was thick, but Maya remained unfazed. She stood up slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and finally turned to face him. "If you have something constructive to add, Officer Hensley," she said evenly, "now would be the time." Her composed response seemed to irritate him even more. He scoffed, shaking his head. "Constructive? You want constructive? Fine. How about we talk about how someone with your background might not have the experience needed for a case like this? I've been on the streets longer than you've probably been alive." The comment stung, not because it was true, but because it was meant to cut deep. Maya knew full well that she had earned every ounce of respect through years of hard work. Yet Hensley wasn't interested in facts. He wanted to undermine her in front of everyone. His words carried weight, though, especially among those who already doubted her capabilities. A small group of bystanders had gathered nearby, watching the exchange with growing curiosity. Hensley pressed on, emboldened by the attention. "Tell me, Agent Carter," he said, sneering as he emphasized her title, "did you get this assignment because you're good at your job, or because someone upstairs decided it was time to check a box?" That was the final straw for many of the officers present. Even those who weren't fans of Maya couldn't help but feel uncomfortable with how personal Hensley was getting. Still, No one stepped forward to defend her. They all seemed frozen, unsure of what to do next. Meanwhile, Maya kept her expression neutral, refusing to let him see any crack in her armor. But Hensley wasn't done yet. He took a step closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it seem like he was offering friendly advice. But everyone within earshot could still hear him clearly. "Look," he said, "I'm just saying, maybe this isn't the best use of resources. Maybe there are other agents better suited for this kind of thing. You wouldn't want to mess this up, would you?" His condescending tone sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. Maya felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken questions lingering in the air. Did they agree with him? Were they silently judging her too? For a brief moment, doubt crept into her mind. But then she reminded herself of why she was there: to find justice for victims who deserved answers, regardless of what anyone thought of her. As much as Hensley tried to rattle her, Maya refused to let him win. She squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze head-on. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected her to hold her ground so firmly. For now, she chose not to retaliate. But inside, she was already planning her next move. If Hensley thought he could humiliate her without consequences, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The atmosphere at the crime scene shifted dramatically after Maya's confrontation with Officer Hensley. While he stood silently on the sidelines, trying to avoid further attention, Maya took a moment to address the team. She knew that this wasn't just about shutting down one prejudiced officer. It was an opportunity to remind everyone of their shared mission and responsibility as law enforcement officers. Turning to face the group, Maya spoke with a calm but commanding tone. "I'm not here to lecture anyone," she began, her voice steady and sincere. "But I do want to make something clear. Hate crimes like these don't just hurt individuals. They tear apart entire communities. And when we let bias or prejudice cloud our judgment, we become part of the problem instead of the solution." Her words resonated deeply, especially among the younger officers who had been watching the exchange between her and Hensley. Many of them hadn't seen someone handle such blatant disrespect with so much grace and intelligence. One rookie, in particular, a young detective named Marcus Lane, nodded thoughtfully, his admiration for Maya growing with each passing second. Maya continued, her expression softening slightly as she explained the broader impact of their work. "Think about it," she said, gesturing toward the graffiti-covered wall behind her. "Whoever did this didn't care about right or wrong. They wanted to send a message, to spread fear and division. But what they didn't count on is us." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the group. "We have the power to stop them, to show them that hate won't win. Not on our watch." Her speech struck a chord, reigniting the sense of purpose that had brought many of these officers into law enforcement in the first place. Even some of the more seasoned detectives, who might have initially doubted Maya's abilities, found themselves nodding along. It wasn't just her words, it was the conviction behind them. She wasn't asking for respect out of entitlement. She was earning it through action and leadership. After wrapping up her brief talk, Maya turned her focus back to the investigation. She assigned tasks to different members of the team, ensuring everyone had a role to play. When she noticed Marcus standing nearby, looking eager but unsure of himself, she approached him directly. "Detective Lane," she said with a small smile, "you've got sharp instincts. Why don't you help me review the security footage from the area? We might find something useful." Marcus blinked in surprise but quickly nodded, grateful for the chance to contribute. "Absolutely, Agent Carter," he replied, his voice filled with newfound confidence. As they worked together, Maya took the time to explain her thought process, sharing insights that demonstrated both her expertise and her willingness to mentor others. By the end of the day, Marcus wasn't just impressed by Maya. He was inspired by her. Meanwhile, Hensley lingered awkwardly, clearly struggling with how to proceed. He'd never expected Maya to turn the situation around so effectively, or to expose his flaws in front of everyone. Though he still harbored resentment, he couldn't deny the professionalism and competence she displayed throughout the investigation. For the first time, he found himself questioning whether his own biases were as justified as he'd always believed. As the sun began to set over the city, casting long shadows across the crime scene, Maya gathered her team for a quick debriefing. "We're making progress," she announced, her tone optimistic yet grounded. "But there's still a lot of work to do. Let's stay focused and keep pushing forward." Her energy was contagious, motivating everyone to give their best effort. By the end of the day, it was clear that Maya had accomplished far more than solving a single conflict. She had earned the respect of her colleagues, united the team under a common goal, and reminded everyone why they chose this line of work in the first place. Though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, Maya faced them with unwavering determination and a quiet confidence that inspired those around her to rise to the occasion. Hensley stood frozen, his face a mix of disbelief and frustration. Maya's calm but calculated move had left him speechless. The crowd around them, officers, reporters, and bystanders, watched as the tables turned completely. What started as Hensley's attempt to humiliate Maya had now become her moment to shine. She didn't yell or lose control. Instead, she dismantled him with facts, poise, and undeniable preparation. Maya didn't stop there. After exposing his disciplinary record, she decided to drive her point home. Turning back toward Hensley, she spoke not just to him, but to everyone within earshot. "Let me make something clear," she said, her voice firm yet composed. "I'm here because I earned my place. Not because of quotas or favors, but because I've proven myself time and again." Her words echoed through the alleyway, silencing even the distant chatter of onlookers. She paused for effect, letting her statement sink in before continuing. "But this isn't about me, or you," she added, gesturing toward Hensley. "It's about these victims." She pointed to the evidence markers scattered across the scene. The defaced walls, broken glass, and remnants of destruction caused by hate-filled actions. Every second we waste arguing over who belongs here is another second where the people responsible for these crimes are still out there, free to do more damage. Her tone softened slightly, but only enough to emphasize the importance of her message. "You might not like me, Officer Hensley, and that's fine. But what you need to understand is this. When someone commits a hate crime, they're attacking all of us. They're tearing apart the fabric of our community. And if we can't work together, if we let prejudice and bias divide us, then we're failing at our jobs. We're failing the very people we swore to protect." The weight of her words seemed to hit everyone differently. Some officers nodded slowly, clearly moved by her passion. Others looked down, perhaps reflecting on their own biases or past behaviors. Even the reporters stopped scribbling notes for a moment, captivated by the raw honesty in her delivery. As for Hensley, he shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. For the first time, he seemed aware of how small his grievances sounded compared to the bigger picture Maya was painting. Then, almost as an afterthought, Maya added one final twist. "By the way," she said casually, glancing at her phone again, "I already briefed internal affairs about potential interference in this case, just in case anyone thought bullying tactics would slow us down." This revelation drew sharp intakes of breath from those nearby. Officers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that Maya had come prepared for every possible scenario. If Hensley pushed back further, he wouldn't just embarrass himself. He'd risk serious consequences. The tension in the air shifted entirely. Where once Hensley held the upper hand, or so he thought, he now found himself cornered. His bravado faded, replaced by visible unease. He opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it again, unable to find the right words. Instead, he muttered something under his breath and took a step back, effectively conceding the argument. For Maya, this wasn't just a personal victory. It was a teachable moment. By staying professional and using logic rather than emotion, she demonstrated leadership qualities that many in law enforcement strive for but rarely achieve. People began returning to their tasks, energized by her determination and clarity. Reporters jotted furiously in their notebooks, eager to capture the drama unfolding before them. And while Hensley retreated to the sidelines, his earlier arrogance replaced by quiet shame, Maya took charge of the investigation once again. As she instructed her team to gather more evidence and analyze the scene thoroughly, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She hadn't come here to win arguments or settle scores. She came to solve a case, to bring justice to those who needed it most. But along the way, she reminded everyone present, including herself, that true strength lies not in reacting to negativity but in rising above it. With Hensley neutralized and her authority firmly reestablished, Maya refocused on the task ahead, knowing full well that challenges like this were just part of the journey. In the weeks following the takedown of Victor Kane and his hate group, life in the department began to settle into a new rhythm. The arrests sent shockwaves through extremist circles, dismantling not only Kane's operation, but also disrupting connections to larger networks. Community leaders expressed their gratitude publicly, praising Maya and her team for standing up against hatred and protecting vulnerable neighborhoods. For many residents, the case was more than just a victory. It was a reminder that justice could prevail when people worked together. Officer Greg Hensley, however, found himself at a crossroads. His behavior during the investigation had not gone unnoticed, and Internal Affairs launched an inquiry into his conduct. Though he avoided formal charges due to lack of concrete evidence, he was placed on probation and required to attend mandatory diversity training programs. At first, Hensley resented the measures, convinced they were unnecessary. But as he sat through sessions led by community activists and listened to stories from individuals who had faced discrimination, something shifted within him. One afternoon, after one such session, Hensley approached Maya outside the precinct. He looked uncomfortable, his usual swagger replaced by an awkward hesitancy. "Agent Carter," he began, clearing his throat. "I'd wanted to say thank you." The words felt foreign coming out of his mouth, but he pressed on. "You didn't have to let me off easy back there. You could have made things worse for me." Maya studied him for a moment, her expression neutral. She didn't trust his sudden change of heart entirely, but she saw sincerity in his eyes. "It wasn't about making things harder or easier for you," she replied evenly. "It was about doing what's right, for everyone, including you." Her response caught him off guard, forcing him to reflect on his actions and biases. Over time, Hensley became quieter, less confrontational, and more willing to listen. While some colleagues remained wary of him, others noticed subtle changes, like the way he no longer dismissed input from younger officers or minority staff members. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was progress. For Maya, the aftermath of the case brought both challenges and rewards. Her success earned her widespread recognition, including commendations from senior FBI officials and invitations to speak at community events. Yet fame wasn't what motivated her. What mattered most was seeing tangible results. Businesses reopening after vandalisms, families feeling safer walking their streets, and young activists inspired to continue fighting for equality. Every small victory reminded her why she chose this path. As months passed, Maya reflected on the journey, the resistance she faced, the alliances she forged, and the lives she touched along the way. She knew racism and prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight. There would always be another battle to fight, another voice to uplift. But moments like these gave her hope. They proved that even in the face of hate, compassion and resilience could shine brighter. Late one evening, as Maya prepared to leave the office, Detective Marcus Lane stopped by her desk. "Got a minute?" he asked with a grin. When she nodded, he handed her a folder. Inside were plans for a new initiative aimed at improving relations between law enforcement and marginalized communities. "Thought you might want to take a look," he said proudly. "Figured we should keep building on what we started." Maya smiled, genuinely touched. "This is great work, Marcus," she said, flipping through the pages. "Let's make it happen." Together, They discussed strategies, brainstorming ways to involve local leaders and foster trust. As they talked, Maya realized how much the team had grown, not just individually but collectively. They weren't just solving crimes anymore. They were creating lasting change. That night, as Maya walked to her car under a blanket of stars, she paused for a moment to take it all in. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. With every challenge overcome, every ally gained, and every injustice fought, she grew stronger. And so did the world around her. Justice wasn't just about catching criminals. It was about planting seeds of hope and watching them grow into something greater. And Maya Carter was determined to keep nurturing those seeds, one step at a time. The tension between Maya and Officer Hensley had reached its peak. Everyone in the vicinity, officers, bystanders, even a few reporters who had shown up to cover the scene, was watching intently. It was as if time itself had slowed down, waiting for Maya's response. Hensley stood there, arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won. He thought he'd rattled her enough to make her shrink back, retreat into silence, or maybe even lash out emotionally. But Maya wasn't one to play by his rules. Instead of responding with anger or frustration, something unexpected happened. Maya smiled. It wasn't a warm or friendly smile. It was calm, calculated, and carried an edge that made Hensley pause mid-sentence. The smirk on his face faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of confusion. What did she have to smile about? "You know," Maya began, her voice steady and clear, cutting through the awkward quiet that had settled over the crowd. "I've heard comments like yours before." She took a slow step forward, closing some of the distance between them. Her eyes locked onto his, unflinching. "And honestly, they don't bother me anymore. They're predictable. Boring, even." Hensley blinked, caught off guard. This wasn't how these situations usually play out. Most people either got defensive, tried to ignore him, or walked away entirely. But Maya wasn't doing any of those things. Instead, she seemed amused. It threw him off balance, and for the first time since their encounter began, he didn't know what to say. Maya continued, her tone measured but firm. "What does bother me, though," she said, raising her voice just enough to ensure everyone around could hear, "is when someone lets their personal biases get in the way of solving real problems. Like hate crimes." She gestured toward the graffiti-covered wall behind them, the ugly words still visible despite attempts to clean it. "These aren't just random acts of vandalism. They're attacks meant to divide our community. And yet here we are, wasting time because you can't focus on what actually matters." Her words hit hard, not just for Hensley, but for everyone listening. Several officers shifted uncomfortably, while others exchanged looks of agreement. Even the bystanders seemed to straighten up, paying closer attention to what she was saying. Maya wasn't just calling out Hensley. She was reminding everyone of why they were there, to protect and serve, not to perpetuate division. But she wasn't finished. With a small, almost imperceptible nod, she pulled out her phone and tapped the screen a few times. Then, without missing a beat, she turned it toward Hensley. On the screen was a detailed record of his disciplinary history, complete with dates, incidents, and outcomes. Complaints from citizens accusing him of racial profiling. Internal memos noting his refusal to cooperate with diversity training programs. Everything was there, neatly compiled, as if she'd been expecting this very moment. "This," she said, holding the phone up so he, and anyone else nearby, could see it clearly, "is your file. Did you think I wouldn't do my homework?" Her smile widened slightly, but there was no warmth in it. It was the kind of smile that said, "Checkmate." For a split second, Hensley looked genuinely shocked. His mouth opened as if he wanted to protest, but no words came out. The confidence he'd worn like armor just moments ago was crumbling under the weight of her preparation. Maya hadn't come to this crime scene unprepared. She'd anticipated resistance, especially from someone like him. And now, she was using it against him. The crowd murmured, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Some officers glanced at each other nervously, realizing they might have underestimated Maya. Others looked at Hensley with pity, or perhaps disdain. Whatever respect he commanded before was slipping away with every passing second. Maya stepped back, lowering her phone but keeping her gaze fixed on him. "Now," she said, her voice softening slightly but still carrying authority, "are you going to help me solve this case, or do I need to report you to Internal Affairs for interfering with an active investigation?" The question hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. For the first time, Hensley looked unsure of himself. He opened his mouth again, then closed it, unable to find the right words. Maya didn't press further. She simply turned away, signaling to the rest of the team that it was time to get back to work. As she walked past the stunned onlookers, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about proving herself. It was about showing everyone that professionalism and integrity always win, no matter how much noise someone like Hensley tried to make.